Hello, I'm David Hunt, and welcome to the show today. My guest today, this is going to be an interesting one. So let's analyse this. What does the National Trust have in common with parties and the government garments worn at the parties? I'm a bit confused. There's this exhibition that's on at the National Trust at present, and it's all about party outfits and clothing. So let's meet the people involved because, hello, National Trust is all about buildings, isn't it? Or is there another side to the National Trust that we don't know? Gerard O'Connor, hello.
Hello, good to see you.
Well, lovely to see you. Now, I've interviewed you many times over the years, on radio mostly, and also a bit on TV. But who's this lovely lady next to you?
This is Elizabeth Anya-Petrivna.
Yeah.
Petrovsky.
Petrivna. I should have said it. But that's okay. What nationality is
Ukrainian.
Ukrainian.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Yes.
So you're National Trust.
I am.
And curator and
Historian.
An
yes.
historian. Oh, of course, National Trust. And what are you?
Photographer.
Oh no! You told me to call you an artist.
I am an artist.
Now let's talk about that. What is this exhibition called?
It's called Party Hard.
After the party.
After the party. What is involved? Is it about the buildings that used to throw the parties, or?
It's really about the story, I think, of the clothing. Like clothing holds a story and a memory, and whether it's something that's a designer or whether it's something that's just in your wardrobe, everything holds energy and something behind it.
But the fact is, it's a lot of from your collection of not costumes, of people's
Fashion
garments.
and dress, yes.
And that's donated to the National Trust. Tell us a bit of a story on that.
All right. Well, the Trust has been collecting historical fashion and dress since the early 60s. So in 1961, the very, very first registered object ever donated to the National Trust was it was a group of 1850s day dresses. And so the Trust has always been interested in what's called, I guess, in the museum field of, movable cultural heritage.
Oh, that's a good name for it.
Yeah, isn't it? Movable cultural heritage that often align to the properties themselves. So you were sort of saying, does this have anything to do with the properties? Well, it does. We do have garments that are associated with some places. Gerard did a fantastic shoot that was associated with place. But then we've also got these garments that are very much about the history of Melbourne and Victoria. So the Trust has been collecting, our collection policy is really quite strict. We only collect what's local. So I always joke and say we're very parochial, but that sort of gives us our niche.
Because a National Trust is a national organisation.
But each National Trust in each state is its own independent organisation. So we're not unified. We all have our own different flavour.
Okay. Yes. So you can do things very different to other states.
Yes.
So tell us, what is the National Trust? A lot of people out there might not be aware of what the National Trust is.
This is our 70th anniversary year.
Wow.
And it was started by a group of concerned individuals who were very worried about the loss of heritage in Melbourne and Victoria during the 50s.
Which would have been post-war, I suppose.
Post-war, and a lot of buildings being knocked down by Wheel and the Wrecker. We sort of had architects like Robin Boyd involved, and so there was this real drive to do something about that. So it actually started as a grassroots activist organisation, and that's still really a huge part of what the Trust does. So we kind of do two things. We've got the advocacy, and we advocate for trees. That's a really, really big campaign at the moment. We advocate for buildings. So the Curtin Hotel was a big campaign, and we advocate for landscape.
I've just got to stop you there, because if you're buying a building, it's it's expensive. Well, what do you do? Is it fundraising involved?
Yes, our membership, fundraising, we get no government support whatsoever.
Really?
Yes.
I'm shocked on that.
We have to apply for grants. It's very, very competitive. But then that gives the organisation its independence to actually advocate and so that sort of more activist part of what the organisation does can remain independent from government, because we're often kind of questioning what they're doing and their decisions. And then the other part is the properties and the historic houses and the collections, which the costume collection is, or the fashion and dress collection is one.
Right. Now, what's your background as a curator?
I've been with the Trust now for, this is my anniversary month, so 28 years. 28
years?
Yeah. But
like there should be a statue of you in one of the buildings.
And, you know, I've come from sort of cultural studies, history, that sort of side of things. And when I was doing museum studies at Deakin University, I quickly realised that I wanted to be in a more domestic space. I really liked the idea of house museums and social history. And so there was really only one place in Victoria for me to dream about getting my dream job, and that was the Trust. And I was just very blessed and fortunate to have been employed.
Now this is something quite unique and a little bit different, you know, and what better person than Gerard O'Connor to be involved. You take the most incredible photos. You're a photographer. Tell our audience a little bit about who you are as a photographer.
Well, I'm a photographer that worked in advertising and fashion for a long time, and then I worked at a time when people were quite creative in their output for commercial work. And then as that kind of dwindled, I started working more in the art field and making big filmic stills with a stylist called Mark Wozniak, who I've worked with for 30 years.
Yeah, wow. And the wonderful thing is that that's a connection with Elizabeth, because the beautiful
Victoriana,
you know, Rip and Lee.
We did a number of photos. Actually, we did the Victoriana where we had like 90 plus people in the one shot, and then we did all these shots, and that travelled. Government House purchased one of those, and that went to Buenos Aires and won some big awards. And then because I like factual fiction, where you look at history, but then you give it your own swing. And I never even know exactly what's true, what's false with history. But
it's like a film set, isn't it?
It basically,
multiple, and everyone's volunteer that works on it, which is lovely.
Yes.
But they all get a name and a character to portray in that that photo shoot, don't they?
So we'll cast people beforehand, so people know what they're actually going to do on the day, and we give them a role to play, so they come and bring more to the actual artwork than what you'd expect.
And some of the other places you're filmed is the meat market in North Melbourne, the famous historic building, which is used a lot as a theatre these days. Tell us, what did you create there?
Well, we'd just come back from Buenos Aires, and Mark and me were really impressed with the whole tango world. And people used to turn over markets or cafes and then at night time dance all night until they put a curfew on them. And the City of Melbourne supported me, Pamela Dara, actually, with the Fashion Festival, gave me access to the meat market because it's got the biggest blue stone. And it looks like you could be in a square somewhere.
Yeah, looks like a laneway where people were dancing. And what you created there was extraordinary. Yeah. But then the Queens of the Pubs, which you filmed
at the Esplanade Hotel.
Extraordinary. And that staircase there, that famous staircase. How many people were on that?
On the staircase, there was probably about 30 people, I think.
Oh, I thought it was more than that.
Well, we went into the Gershon room, and then we had a lot more. We had probably about 45 people.
But the Queen was the main figure, and the clothing and all that was extraordinary. Yeah. But then there were altar boys, and drag queens and outrageous punk.
It was inspired by women who ran the hotels in the city. A lot of migrant women had them in the 1950s. And when things were subsiding in the 70s, they had to have gay nights and punk nights and do anything to survive, so that they'd, be really quite community orientated. So our version of the Queen was a Queen that had memory, and we made her wardrobe out of bottle tops. We worked on it for 2 years and did the jewellery as champagne cages.
Tell the audience about the cloak.
The cloak was, wool bottle tops we collected from pubs all over St Kilda, and we sat together like a shelf.
So you flattened them out?
We flattened them and then pierced them on every corner and put rings through them and actually turned them into a golden cape that was...
And looked absolutely spectacular. And
was
what
massive.
took you about 2 years to make?
2 years to make, yeah.
Whoa,
And,
that's extraordinary. Absolutely
yeah.
extraordinary. Now, Elizabeth, where did the idea, did you go to Gerard about it, or did Gerard come to you?
I'd been kicking around this idea of looking at the sort of the evidence of a good night out in our historical garments in the collection. And so we sort of programmed Party Hard, and it was at a Fash Lab event, Fash Lab Advocate for Fashion in Melbourne, and Gerard was skulking in the background, in the back, and I was talking about Party Hard, and as you tell it, Gwendolyn Birkin, the designer, was elbowing you, saying, that's perfect for you. Yeah. And so we had a chat afterwards, and
So you knew about the stuff he's done at Ripponley and
Oh,
whatever.
yes.
Yep.
I met Gerard so long ago, actually, in the butler's pantry at Labassa, and we hit it off, and I think we chatted for over an hour, and then of course we kept in touch, and Victoriana happened, and so it, Gerard was a natural go-to. Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's called Party Hard after the party. And the clothing is, like in some instances, they've got stains on them from somebody might have thrown up in the dress and just given it to the National Trust as, like, I want to get rid of it, like it's a lovely old dress, or a farmer's ball, and the woman's around her waist is all dirty from dirty hands from the farmer dancing within this ball gown, while a nice sort of dress. Just really interesting stuff. But then you brought it forward to, like fairly contemporary stuff as well, haven't you?
That's why I got quite excited about doing it, because Party Hard is a pretty exciting memory to have. Yeah. And everyone's got a Party Hard story. It's like quite universal.
It is.
And the stain story that Lizzie brought up initially was a woman, it was a 1950s dress.
Yeah.
And it's got a stain down the front, which you don't know if it's vomit or
maybe someone threw something in your face, but
like
it's all down.
Yeah, jealous.
But isn't that interesting that
it
you
sure
hand
is.
it, like, wouldn't you clean it before? But it's good that she didn't.
Well, sometimes I sort of think that some of the stains may have been alcohol and that weren't as obvious at the time, but over time it's kind of developed, and you sort of see them. What I found really interesting about the stains was that they sort of spoke, and that's what I guess historical garments do. They can tell you things about people who have perhaps left no other historical record. They've not left a diary, they've not left letters, we don't know. But that garment, we can kind of really examine that and start to piece together who they were, how they lived, and how they partied. I have to do a shout out to Professor Robin Healy, who I worked with on an exhibition with her back in 2006. And she really pioneered this whole idea of not showing pristine garments on display. So museums often conserve things and make them look perfect.
Or Victoria and Albert, you see that there's docos on it and they're painstakingly,
Whereas this, we're sort of wanting to make sure that the evidence remains. I mean, everything can be stabilised, and that being said, some conservators might cringe because it's always at the damaged point that the garments are at their most fragile. But then the Trust collection is about the lived experience. We're looking at all of these stories and connections. It's not so much about fashion, but as we like to say, it's more about dress. How things changed over time, how many people wore the dress, how many times it had been altered. So all of that is just really exciting information.
Yeah. But then you put a call out, and that's when you came on Sunday Arts Magazine on Joy, and to tell us about it coming up. And to also ask people, have they got anything they would like to lend or donate?
That was the nice thing, because then a lot of people that I'd spent my party times with, who I know, like people like Gavin Brown and Brenton Gayer and Gavin Campbell and yourself. And then I put clothes in of myself, my own clothes, and Mark Wozniak's clothes. And the funny thing is, when you actually look through your wardrobe, I had a Gautier top that I bought in Paris with Mark when I was probably 20 years ago that I was so proud of. And I went to a party and this model put a cigarette burn through the top because he was really jealous of it. And that's the thing, you always remember the damage.
Yeah.
Like you go back to the wardrobe and go, should I wear that? Oh, but that person put that cigarette through me.
You could always wear a badge or something.
You could wear a badge on it or get it repaired, but for some reason you keep it. And the funny thing is when I spoke to Gavin Campbell or Gavin Brown, they said similar things. You know, this is not perfect, but this, like Gavin Brown gave clothes from Plain Jane, which was his label when he first started.
He's now an international
artist, painter. And Betty had a label and the National Gallery are the only other people that have collected it. And so when you personally ask people to put clothes into an exhibition for a short period of time, they kind of found it an honour, giving their damaged clothes.
Well, I did,
yes.
When I offered mine. And it's a shirt that I had in the 80s.
Yeah.
And the one photo I found of it was me at Inflation nightclub. At I used to work for record companies, and I was at a launch for I can't remember what the album was. And the person I'm in the photo with is that worked at a radio station. I wear it quite often, and love it.
Well, it's funny because it brought up memories when I was little, and I used to sit on the bed while my mother, for some reason, my mother would let me sit in the room while she got changed. She would talk to her clothes, like and say, should I wear this? Or no, I had a bad experience that time and you should be going out somewhere. And I'd sit and listen to her and she'd actually say, oh, I met your father through those clothes. So clothes have, I think it's just quite universal.
It is. There's been a lot of research on this idea of a biographical wardrobe.
What do you mean by that?
That our wardrobes are biography. It's Elise Skolch, I think that's how you say her name. She sort of pioneered this idea, very academic papers, but nonetheless, looking at fashion and dress as retaining this information and material culture as that kind of historical evidence. And I really love the term a biographical wardrobe.
I've moved, interstate multiple times. And that's the one shirt I've kept.
Yes.
Most of and other things I've thrown out. I go and a jumper that somebody knitted for me that had piano keys across the front. They're still angry with me. They still pick on me when they see that photo. I've got a photo of it, and I think, why did I throw it? But there's only so much you can
keep. Because I've gone into making these, like even doing this photo shoot, because I kept a lot of Mark styling stuff, and you reuse it. You go back and you find stuff. Because, I'm like a physical artist putting stuff into pictures. So the more stuff you have, the better, really.
Keith Haring.
Yes.
I went to New York soon after he'd died. Yeah. And he had the pop shop there, which was amazing. He'd painted the floors and the walls and whatever. Yeah. And I bought a T-shirt with him on it. And it was an oversized one. It was a little bit too big to wear. So I put it in a frame. Yeah. And it was when I was living in Sydney. And when I moved, I threw it away. And it was a T-shirt I could have easily folded up and when I tell that story, everyone's horrified.
You could have bought a house for that.
I know. The wonderful thing is the way you've presented this exhibition is really, and a lot of your photography at Rip and Lee with all the women in Victorian clothing or the queens of the pubs are around on the walls. And, but the way you've presented it, you've done a beautiful job. It's not a huge exhibition, but pretty, there's a lot there. Yeah. It feels as if you're in a party when you walk into it, don't you?
That was deliberate. Yeah. Keeping most of the mannequins kind of on the floor. During the launch, it was just so brilliant to see. Normally people come see an exhibition during a launch and then they're out wanting to have another drink, but people stayed in that space, which I thought was really terrific.
The mannequins are quite animated, aren't they?
Yeah, so we tried to make them gesture.
Touch each other.
I've got a few flying through the air.
The Huxleys.
Yes.
Who tell us who are the Huxleys?
So the Huxleys are visual artists who are quite extraordinary. They make their own costumes and they're partners and they work together and they are quite prolific.
And they're invited now to go to corporate organisations and all that, use them, and they've got extraordinary headdresses which is in the exhibition, and they just wander through
and don't speak
and and people, what's this? And it's and they've made a name for themselves and they're known now Australia wide.
They're kind of like sort of two kind of gods standing on the mantelpiece overseeing
Yeah.
the revelry.
Yeah.
And they lent us their very first costumes that they made for Dark Mofo in 2015 for a performance called Style Over Substance, which came from a Oscar Wilde quote.
Yep.
Where they performed to an audience, and they were a glam rock band with the outfits, with the poses, with the clips, with the backup dancers, but there was no music. So the audience were really kind of quite bemused, wondering what was going on, but it's just so magical.
And then very well known, a costume shop, a piece from her. Who's that?
Rose Chong.
Right. And if you don't know about this store, you've got to go in. It's costume hire that you can hire stuff, but it's extraordinary, isn't it?
It was Rose Chong and Merkel. They were a pair that actually had a fashion label, and then she was quite prolific, Rose. So to survive, she was quite clever. She kept a lot of the clothing and then started hiring them out. So she's quite a survivor. But this particular costume, I'd actually borrowed it for Tasty from Rose, and it was her 80th overcoat. It's a hot pink overcoat that she wore to her 80th birthday, and then she wore a leather harness and some lingerie. At 80, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Something to aspire to.
Yeah.
Something to aspire to.
Yeah, exactly. And she was there on the opening night. And that's what it also did on that night. I found it extraordinary, so many artists and so many, like the in crowd of Melbourne that were all there together and, that you least expected. What's the feedback been like? Because I went back a couple of days later with a friend from interstate, and we were the only ones there. Next minute, the whole place filled up because you were doing talks for members and donors. Everyone was very 50s, 60s plus. What are they thinking about this? Okay, some of them might have been younger back then, but it's still quite different than what you expect the National Trust to be doing.
Well, they have really enjoyed it. They've embraced it. And they've also a lot of people had wanted to share their stories. So when
lovely.
It was really interesting being in that space, and you'd have maybe a raised eyebrow here and there, but then all of a sudden they'd start talking about a memory, or they'd be really sort of fascinated by a certain decorative aspect of what was on display. Gerard's photograph, The Spirit of the Party, everyone was just gravitating towards that just because of just the exuberance and how lush it is, just amazing. So it was this sense of wonder. And one thing that I've been loving is people coming up going, oh, I've kept some party outfits from, like the 1950s. Would you be interested? And, so it's kind of opened things up a little more. It was great to see. And visitation has been really strong.
I think it's really lovely that, because engaging a younger people as well.
There were so many people that volunteered their time for the photo shoot. There was like a lot of young models, and
this was a photo shoot specially for Party Hard that you took
at Labassa,
which is an historic house,
in Caulfield,
a National Trust place, and and so much is going on in this. Can we see that? Is it on the National Trust website or something?
It will be.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. There's a little bit of a campaign around that to sort of do the big da-da. But
okay. So
but it is on display in the exhibition.
Well, it flashes up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Where the other paintings, your photography is on the other walls.
Yeah.
But this one is one that's just flashes
but with
up.
a little bit of a behind the scenes. The house is so elaborate. Labassa's like probably one of my favourite houses. It's really gothic and it looks like it's had many lives living in the house. So the house is the hero and everyone's pouring out of the house. I worked with Richard and Gwendolyn on that, and the more we spoke about the party hard concept, we thought the energy of partying hard is a spirit, which could be alcohol or could be the energy of that takes self-abandon. And then the big spirit that we thought of was what you mentioned before, was the Keith Haring Ode, which was almost to Grace Jones, who we made a massive version. We looked at a small crinoline and made it 4.5 metres high crinoline.
Right,
so
yeah.
she became the spirit of the house, which we stood on a big ladder, and we worked on that for a few weeks.
Elizabeth, what is the one thing you want for this exhibition to achieve? What is the one thing you want people to get out of it?
I think the main thing is just to sort of evoke a sort of sense of emotion and connection and linking that with personal memory.
Yeah, but what I love, it's in one room, and it's of course, you know, there's a hallway, and on the other side is clothing you can buy. Because, you know, like, you get so much given to you that you're selling some of it as well.
Our retail manager, Jack Fordham, he worked very closely on this with us as well, with Party Hard, and he then curates a selected number of garments for the boutique, the vintage clothing boutique. I always keep a strict eye on things, just if anyone's nervous that we're selling anything precious, we don't. I always keep a very strict eye on what's coming in.
Yeah, and fair enough.
Just in case something slips in where it shouldn't. It should actually be in our museum collection. And so people can kind of shop the look, really. And another thing, this is quite timely, is that in March we're holding our annual vintage and collectibles sale, clothing and collectibles sale at the Abbotsford Convent, and that happens every year, and it's our major fundraiser.
Right, okay.
And you can pick up a great bargain over the weekend.
Where is this exhibition, Party Hard? Where is it?
Tasma Terrace, which is a set of wonderful terraces behind Parliament next to the Park Hyatt. It has been the trust offices for a very long time, and usually open to the public during open house, Melbourne Open House.
Oh, so it's not open normally?
Oh, no, but it is now. But we have now relaunched it. So we're calling it Tasma Revealed.
Yep.
And so we have the gallery, we have the shop, and then we have a research library that people can book to use.
Right.
So the downstairs is now all public facing.
Congratulations on this exhibition. So good that the National Trust is moving with the times and being very creative along the way. So thank you so much for coming in. So we've been talking to today Elizabeth Anya-Petrivna and Gerard O'Connor as well. Thank you so much for coming in today. I'm David Hunt, and I'll see you again real soon. See ya.